Hey team, I wanted to just spend a quick second and show just how easy it is to mount skis. I know it's something that a lot of um, shops are charge a lot for, but also um, they are usually backed up right when it's ski season and with the time that you want to be getting on your skis. So I'm going to show you just how you can do it at home with a couple simple tools, and we'll go from there. So first I'd like to point out that I'm going to mount this ski here. This has over 29 existing mounts in it, or 29 existing holes, excuse me, in it. Almost 30 holes because it's been mounted 3 times. So in order to make sure that I can get the proper kind of distance between my mount plates for my boot, I'm actually using a Marker Griffin Demo binding. The reason I like this is you don't actually need a template. A template is going to be on the existing demo tracks by themselves. So I'm going to use these to lay these out and then go ahead and mount this ski that way. Otherwise, the other things that you need is a ski centering tool. So this is a 3D printed tool that I can go ahead and link for you guys to help find the center of the ski, so that way your binding track is on point. You need your screws that come with your binding, and then this ski has metal in it, so this is actually a drill bit specifically for mounting skis, and if you can see, it's got a it's kind of stepped there, so that way you only drill into the ski the distance that you need. And this is 4.1 mil. The other traditional mounting is 3.9. 3.9 is going to be used for skis that are only a wood core, and 4.1 is going to be used for a ski that has metal in it like this. The other thing I have here is a number 2 Phillips attachment for my impact driver, because it's going to help me set this ski. The last thing that you're going to need is some epoxy to go ahead and help keep these holes dry, so that way you don't get water penetration into your ski. For that, I'm using G-Flex, which is a nice 24-hour marine epoxy to help with that. So that's kind of all we need here. We'll go ahead and dive in. So first thing I'm going to do here is grab my front mount plate, and I'm going to go ahead and set it on a spot on the ski in which I think that I could get a screw in. General rule of thumb that I use is, in a metal ski, the nice thing is you can get your overlap your holes pretty dang close. So I've heard things of 10 mils or 1 centimeter from the center of the hole, don't drill a hole. So I'm looking here and I can actually find a spot between these 2 holes where I can accomplish that. So I'll go ahead and set this on there and make sure that the back is clear. So first thing I'm going to want to do is find center on this ski. So I'm going to set my ski centering tool right on top over my binding here, and I'm going to go ahead and find the center of the mount plate. And if you look here, you can actually see this tract that the binding is attached to. That's easier to find the center point. So I'm just going to kind of look and eyeball it. Again, this does not have to be very hard. You don't need to make it any harder than it is. So I'm just going to go ahead and eyeball center and make sure that we're good there. And then I'm going to make sure that I'm between these 2 holes. So I'm just going to slide it over, which I'm good there. And then I'm just going to measure against on the back side of the track. Same thing. Find that center, just like that. I'm going to mark these holes here. Mark, perfect. So now I'm going to take that off and just kind of look here. Make sure that I'm centered between these two holes here. So that's my center point there. And if I use, of course I'm saying that if you just want to check to make sure that you are on center, about 20 and 20. So those are going to be centered there. If you just want to check yourself and make sure that that looks good. Okay. So now next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my mount, I'm going to set it on there just like that. I'm going to take my toe piece, and really all I'm doing at this point, and I'm going to slide my toe piece on, I'm gonna just make sure that when I mount this, I have plenty of room fore and aft to move my binding to make sure it's on the center. So I'm gonna take my boot here, I'm gonna put it in there just to make sure, and I'm gonna check to make sure that my boot midsole will hit the line on the middle of my ski. And what I drew a line right here, so you can see this is the middle of my ski. On this ski here, it tells me on this sidewall here where the center of the ski is. And so what happens now is I just made sure that on the middle of my boot here, you can see this mark here that I'm just marking in Sharpie. That's the center of my boot. I'm gonna make sure that this line has plenty of adjustment forward and rear on the binding, so that way I know that I can at least be in the center of my ski, which I can. So that'll be all good there. I can go ahead and take this plate off, and then I can make sure that I can drill these. So the other thing that you saw is the reason why I like using these demo bindings is because they're super easy to adjust, right? If this was my daily driver, a ski that I'm gonna be skiing a lot, maybe I don't use a demo binding on it. I can put a regular binding on it because some people say that, you know, demo bindings are heavier and they can affect the flex of the ski. This ski's got metal in it, so I'm not too worried about the flex because it's gonna be pretty stiff underfoot. And so that's one reason why. So now that I've marked this out here, I've got this exactly where I want it. I'm gonna go ahead and drill this with my 4.1 step bit. Just like that. And you notice it just stops right there once it hits that bit. So we're good there. And then last hole here. Perfect. So we're going to check that to make sure that this lines up with it, which it does, and that's awesome. Okay, that's the front of the ski here. Now I'm going to go ahead and mount this so that way I can figure out where I want the back track to be. So I'm going to first mix up some epoxy here. So using a 2-part epoxy. Big glob there. About equal parts. Again, doesn't have to be rocket science. Don't need to make this harder than it is. Get that mixed in there. The reason we use a 2-part marine grade epoxy is because it's got some flex in it. So if you were to use the fast acting epoxy that has, like, you know, a 1 hour or 2 hour cure time, that's a really brittle epoxy, and you don't want that because your ski gets cold and then that brittle, it will break, and so then that's going to allow water to penetrate your ski, which you don't want. So I'm just using something else to go ahead and put some epoxy into these holes. You don't have to necessarily put a ton because the screw's going to go in there and snug it up, but really you're just making sure that there's enough epoxy in here so that there's no water penetration. So go ahead and get that in there. Perfect. Okay, next you're going to take your mount plate here and you're just going to set it on top of your holes that you just drilled, and you're going to go and put those in. Some people do this by hand. I do it by an impact wrench because it's much easier. You don't have to sit there and crank with your hands. You just got to be careful when you go to snug it up that you don't strip out the screw or hit it so hard with the impact that you force it loose. That'll cause us what we call a spinner, and that's not great. So go ahead and I just get these lined up here just like that. Everything's where it needs to go. Remove. All right, next one I'm just going to go ahead and drill these down. Okay. And the other way you can check to make sure that this is all down, put your ski sideways and make sure there's no light coming through here. That's going to be the way that I look. Okay, so now that I've got this on, I'm going to go ahead and put my toe piece on and go ahead and slide it back. Okay, what this is going to let me do is this is going to let me figure out where my boot sole center is on the ski, just as we talked about, right? So we got the Sharpie line that I drew, and then I can look back here and see where the center of the ski is, so that way I make sure I get my heel plate where it needs to be. So I'm actually going to move this binding forward just a skosh. Like that. Check again. And that's right where it needs to be. So now I'm going to do a similar thing here on the back. I'm just going to make sure that my heel plate goes in a spot where it can have enough room, so that way this has enough room to adjust forward and still be snug on my ski. So I'll go ahead and take this off here. And again, we're just kind of eyeballing to see kind of where this plate needs to be. Okay, so moving this here. And looks like I'm going to be putting it back here because that's enough. That's where I have enough room on my ski. I have enough room on my ski so that way the demo binding can adjust forward and backwards, versus a traditional binding, the toe is fixed and it's the heel that has a little bit of adjustment in it. On a demo binding, both of these are able to be moved. So I'm going to go ahead and take my ski center tool. Same thing here. Just tighten this down to find ski center. Look in the back of this clamp here, and I'm just looking at this track and up in here, because that's an easy way to kind of find the center here. So perfect. Front looks good. Move this all the way back. And if you didn't have this ski centering tool, you could use a caliper and do it that way. I'm just gonna mark some holes here. I've got this on. Yep. I'm just going to kind of eyeball in here to make sure that these guys are exactly where they should be, which is in the center of the ski. If you wanted to check, you could also just do this, put it on there, and then check the distance between these two, which it looks good. Perfect. And again, about 1 centimeter off from the center of the new hole you're drilling is about what you want. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Anything less than 1 centimeter or 10 mils from the center to the center of the other hole, and you start to run the risk of having pullouts. So you definitely don't want that. And check this again. Actually, don't like how that hole is lining up there, so I'm going to move these over just a little bit here. Check this again. Okay, and those look good. Okay, so that's all we got to do there. Now we'll take our drill here. Now that that is all drilled, we'll go ahead and add some epoxy into those holes. The other thing too is if so you had some holes that were on your ski that you needed to fill because you removed a binding off of that, or there was an old binding, you can use epoxy, and there's a couple different ways you can do it. They sell these plastic plugs you can get on Amazon, eBay, and these can pound right into the holes just like that. The other thing that you can do is you can take a golf tee and just put the golf tee in it with the epoxy, and then cut that down flush. So there's a couple different ways that you can do that. So that way it's a watertight area, so that you don't have to worry about it. You can do the same thing that I did on the toe. Kind of line these suckers up, start them up, so everything is lined up. Okay. Perfect. All right, next I'm just going to kind of put these through. Okay. Make sure that there's no daylight peeking through there, which is a little in the front. Just cinch that down. That looks good there. Perfect. Now that is all lined up there. Now I can put my heel on it. And these just slide right over, and there's a little lever on the side here. So let's go ahead and get this, make sure this all fits. Perfect. And if you can see, that is all on there. Forward pressure screw is in the rear on these guys, and make sure that's nice and flush. And if we look at our boot center here, got our line, which I can see through here, is right there. And then that's our center of our boot. So that's about as much as you need to do. I'm not going to go into how you properly set up a binding with DINs. That's a different story for a different time. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Again, I will go ahead and link the ski tool centering on the discussion, on the comments here. You can definitely get that printed off, so that way you have something to center your ski. If you don't use that, calipers work just fine. Finding the ski center, mark it with your Sharpie, and then you can run a line down the center of your ski so you know the center of your ski. But thanks for watching, guys. You guys have a good rest of your day.